Welcome back to the Soulful Cook. Today we're going to be making a spicy Korean-inspired gochujang tofu. Now the best part about this recipe is you can make it with any kind of vegetable. I'm going to be using green beans, but it works really well with other stir-fry vegetables like broccoli and carrots, asparagus, and bok choy. To make this tofu crispy, I'm actually going to be baking it in the oven. That way I can avoid using any kind of oil unnecessarily. But if you want, you can also air fry them. They work just as much. They crisp up just the same way. You can also crisp up the tofu on a frying pan on the stove. Now gochujang is a Korean spice. It comes in different kinds of varieties. The one I have is gluten-free. And I'll link it down below in the description box. I know the ones in the market, it's really hard to find that gluten-free one or the ones without too much sugar. So just make sure you're reading the ingredients depending on what your dietary preference is. The other aspect of it is it does come in different spice levels, so I would always just make sure you're adjusting the spice according to your preference. All right, let's make some crispy tofu. All right, so first step is we're gonna get our tofu ready. So I'm using super firm tofu. It's just so much easier than extra firm. There's no need to press this tofu since most of it is already dry. That's why I'm just taking a paper towel. You can also take a thin kitchen towel, and then I'm just dabbing it to remove any kind of excess moisture. Because it's super firm tofu, not extra firm tofu, there's not really that much moisture. But it's just an extra step I like to take to make sure my tofu comes out nice and crispy. It also helps cutting it a little bit easier, and when I toss it in the sauce, it doesn't break apart. So you can really cut this in any shape you want. It just depends on how you like your pieces. I like them small and bite-sized, but strips work. Thick, big cubes also works. Because the super firm tofu I'm using is really big, it's almost double the width of an extra firm tofu block. I'm getting a lot more out of it, so that's why I'm just getting a few extra bite-sized pieces. So now I'm going to transfer this in a deep bowl, which will make it much easier to combine. So into the tofu, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to mince up 2 cloves of garlic. And then just make sure you scrape off all the excess. And then I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of tamari. I'm just gonna add a couple teaspoons of red chili flakes just because I like some extra spice. And then I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is what's really gonna make our tofu nice and crispy. So now I'm just gonna combine everything together, and you really wanna make sure every piece of tofu is coated evenly with this mixture. And again, the best part about using super firm tofu is it doesn't break as easily and it's not as delicate as extra firm tofu. So now I'm going to take a baking sheet lined with some nonstick parchment paper, and I'm just going to transfer all of the tofu on one even layer onto the sheet. Now it's really important, since we're not using any oil, that you use a nonstick parchment paper. Otherwise it does stick to the paper and it's almost impossible to take out. So we're going to bake that at 425 for about 20 to 30 minutes, flipping it halfway. So while the tofu is cooking, we're going to get our vegetables ready. I'm using green beans for this specific meal. If you want, broccoli works just as well. Bok choy is really good. You can also use a combination of vegetables. So it's just whatever veggies you prefer. Just going to sprinkle some salt. Because I'm not using any oil to cook the beans, I'm just gonna pour in some hot water. You wanna be sure if you do this method to use hot water, otherwise it will take even longer to cook. So I'm gonna pour in some hot water, and then I'm just gonna cover the pot and let those cook. All right, so my green beans are perfectly cooked. They also have a little bit of that crunch, so they're not soggy, not too soft. It's perfect crunch right where I like it. And again, you don't want to cook these too much because they will be getting drenched in the sauce, so you want to make sure they have a little bit of bite to them. So we're going to set those aside and we're going to start on our sauce. So into a pot, we're going to mince up some garlic. Make sure your heat is on low because the garlic burns really fast. So to that, we're going to add in our tamari. I'm using tamari because I like gluten-free, but you can use dark soy sauce as well. And then I'm going to add some water because we want this sauce to be pourable. We don't want it to be too thick. So then I'm going to add my gochujang paste. This is the bulk of the sauce, so you want to be heavy-handed with the paste. And then keep mixing it because you don't want it to clump up, so you want to be consistently mixing. So for a sweetener, I'm using maple syrup. And then for some acidity, I'm adding a little bit of rice vinegar. And I'm just gonna keep mixing. And then I'm gonna go in and as a thickening agent, I'm adding my cornstarch slurry. Now with this, you wanna be extra careful because this clumps up super fast if you're not watching it. So just keep stirring until you've reached your desired consistency. And it shouldn't be too thick, it should be right in the middle. So now into a wok, I'm going to add in my cooked green beans. My crispy tofu. And I'm just going to give that a quick mix just to make sure they're evenly distributed. Before I go in and I add in all of that sauce. You want to make sure the heat is on low because there's cornstarch in both the tofu and the sauce. You don't want this to thicken too much. So now I'm just going to mix everything to make sure my beans and my tofu are all coated and drenched in that sauce. If you want it a little bit more saucy, you can add more water. But if you like it dry, then this is the perfect consistency. So I'm just going to sprinkle some sesame seeds. I served my tofu with some rice. You can also use millet, you can use quinoa, you can use whatever you like. You can even cook them with noodles, which taste just as amazing. And then just garnish with some green onions and enjoy. And there you have it, Spicy Gochujang Crispy Tofu. Now this dish was really easy to put together. You can customize it however you want, use whatever veggies you want. Instead of tofu, you can also use soy curls, which gives a little bit more of like a chicken type of texture. Either one works perfectly fine. All right, let's give this tofu a try. I got a little bit of a bean. That's really good. The tanginess from the gochujang paste is perfect. It's got that spice which you're looking for. For my preference, I could use a little bit more spice, but you can just get some chili flakes and sprinkle that on top and it would be perfect. Now I'm serving this with rice underneath, but you can easily serve it with millet, quinoa, any kind of grain that you like. If you like recipes like this one, make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you check out some of my other tofu videos. If you're looking for the detailed recipe of this video, I will have it in the description box below. You can also find it on my website at thesoulfulcook.com. All the products I used in this video are also linked down below, and you can also find those on my Amazon storefront. If there's a tofu recipe you'd like me to create, leave me a comment down below so I can make sure we have that in a future video. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.